Why, hello there. I am Christina Heideck. I am the founder of PTO Answers, and I'm back once again to share just a little bit of my PTO wisdom with you. And this month, we are talking all about membership and parent involvement and parent engagement. And so I'm excited to dive into today's topic, which happens to be membership versus volunteers. And I want to answer the question, like, which one is it better to have? Like, is it better to have gobs and gobs of members, or is it better to have gajillions of volunteers? And it may seem like it's obvious, but it kind of goes back to your group goals. And I know I keep harping on this, but for reals, everything that you do really depends on your group's goals. So like why you should be doing things, it depends on what your group's goals are, rather. So, and I know maybe you're not really focused on getting many members for your year. Like maybe your membership drive is over. I've noticed that in the Facebook community, the PTO Superstar Leader group, which I will drop a link to down in the description when we're done. If you haven't joined it yet, come join us. There's over 5,000 members. It is incredible the amount of people that we have in there, and the questions that people ask. Oh my gosh, they're so great. And some of them really, they help me. You know, it's like someone who's been around for a while, you can still learn things. You absolutely can learn things from other groups. So highly encourage you to join if you have not yet. So yeah, membership drives might be over, but maybe you set a goal for your PTO to have, you know, a certain amount of members this year, and so you're still working towards that goal. And then you have some other groups that maybe they don't care about how many members they have, because they really are more interested in how many volunteers they have. They want to have like a really wide volunteer base so that they have a lot of people to draw upon when they have events going on. So they have plenty of hands. And like I said, it goes back to your group. Like if you already have like a sufficient number of volunteers and it's not an issue for you, for like you have an event and all of the volunteer slots are filled, well then great. Maybe you do want to focus on getting members, because that oftentimes can be the first step to getting them involved. But I got to say that membership for PTOs kind of cuts both ways. And a lot of times people feel like, oh, I've joined, I've done enough. Like that's it. I don't need to get involved. I don't need to volunteer or whatever. I've paid my membership dues. I should be good. Y'all can handle it, right? And for schools that have a lot of volunteers, maybe that's okay. But for schools that don't have a lot of volunteers, then that issue of where people think they've done their part by just giving, just paying the membership dues, can really not be very beneficial to their groups. Like I said, if they don't have enough people to help put events on, then they don't. Oh, thanks, Dana, for popping the link in. So again, the link to join the Facebook community, if you haven't yet, has just been popped down into the comments. So thank you for that. So, and I forgot where I was, sorry. So yeah, if you don't have enough volunteers, then maybe you don't want to focus on getting people to join, because it's more important for them to show up. And if they show up, they're more likely to join. So in a lot of cases, it's kind of like chicken or egg. But at the end of the day, I'd personally much rather have more volunteers, because in the end, it's kind of one and the same. That your volunteers will of course join. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I had another point and it just flew out of my head. So I'll just keep talking and maybe it'll fly back in there. It's been that kind of a day, friends, just that kind of a day. So when you are structuring your asks for either membership or to get volunteers, kind of maybe leave the door open, or maybe make a suggestion of both things, so that parents, because here's really the issue. It's sometimes it is that people don't want to get involved with your group. They don't want to volunteer, but a lot of times I gotta believe they just don't know. They just don't have time. So you either need to make the ask for your volunteers in a way that's approachable for them. So you're saying so you're not saying come to this group or come and volunteer for this event that's 6 hours long. Maybe you're instead you're saying, hey, can you run off copies? So they know it's like going to take an hour to run off copies and they're good to go, and that's limited, that their time is limited, time involvement. So yeah, I guess just keep that in mind. I hope that makes sense. And if you all have any questions about what I'm saying, just feel free, to pop it down in the comments. I guess I'll loop back around and just to talk about like the membership drive, and just say if you're only ever looking for members and you're not making the ask that they be volunteers at some point, or kind of putting that expectation out there, then I think you're doing kind of a disservice to your PTO, because there might come a time when you need volunteers. Or let's say, this totally happened to me one year, where at the beginning of the school year, this program was not even in consideration, but I ran into the PE teacher one day and she's like, hey, I went to this conference. There's this awesome program that it could be instead of, it's like an updated field day, and it could be instead of an assembly. And my personal view is anytime the kids are moving, that is good. They're not moving in school enough. It makes it hard to concentrate. So I was all for this. Well, like I said, it was an updated field day sort of thing. And it turned out that we needed like 20 volunteers. Wow. So at the beginning of the school year, we had not prepped families for this. So that was happening at the end of the school year, which is an exceptionally busy time of the year anyway. And I got lucky that time because people were intrigued by the concept of this program, and we did end up having enough people, but I was a little scared there for a second because I really hadn't had the opportunity to like prep people that this might be coming down the line. So just have that factor into play. So I see there's some questions, so I'm going to go ahead and answer them. Sarah asks, how many membership drives should be done a year? Sarah, I guess it depends. Like, again, it goes back to your group. Like, how well is your group functioning? Do you have enough leaders? Do you have enough volunteers? Do you have people in the pipeline that are going to be moving up into leadership positions? I know that sometimes the scope of the membership drive can be rather limited. I know actually in the school that I'm PTA president at, the membership chair didn't ask the teachers to join this year. And the principal just sent a message in our group and was like, hey, teachers are asking, where are the membership forms? So I tagged the membership chair and I said, hey, can you take him? You got this covered? Got this covered, lady? So make sure that you're asking not only parents to join, but also staff members, because that can increase your numbers. And again, I know that like for my groups, we are PTAs and our dues are only $5 a year per person. And that our PTA, I think we keep like a quarter of that money. So for us, it's not a fundraiser. I know other groups have more significant membership dues, and that they do count on that for fundraising. So Sarah, the question about how many membership drives should be done, I guess that kind of depends on like how your due structure is set up. If you're doing it for fundraiser and you kind of need that money, then maybe you do want to make two goes at it. And if you were going to do 2 membership drives, then I would absolutely do one at the very beginning of the school and then or school year, and then I would probably do another one at the beginning of the second half of the year in January. I wouldn't do it much later than January because a lot of the families, especially the ones that are like moving on to the next school, they're not going to be interested. So you're already going to have lost those people, but you still have a shot if you do it kind of early enough in the year where they're like, okay, I can join for this amount of time. So I hope that answers that question. All right. Gary says, thanks for all the work. You do bring in great assemblies. What bothers you the most that performers should know? Oh, Gary, that's a whole nother topic, not on membership. So I guess I will, let me cover that later, or I'll respond to that later. Aside from not showing up on time, I guess there's really nothing that it would bother me. I guess that's my real response to that one. All right, and Diane asks, talk about specific ways you can ask for, it's okay, Gary, you're cool. Can you ask for specific ways to get volunteers? Oh, heck yeah, Diana, you know I have a gajillion ideas about this, and I think I've covered this in so many different blog posts. So in addition to telling you what I'm going to tell you right now, I will also go back and in the description add in a whole bunch of different blog posts so you can read more about them, because I know my voice is not going to hold out for long enough, and I just got to tell you, you're going to hear the dog barking in a second because I see our mail carrier coming, and he thinks he's getting a cookie, and so he barks crazily because he thinks he's getting a cookie from the mail carrier. So ignore the barking. That is coming in about 20 seconds. So getting volunteers. And this also goes with membership, because when I think one of the biggest mistakes that PTOs make is that they don't publicize events, membership, volunteer requests enough, or in enough different ways. There's the barking. So I think you need to do flyers. I think they need to be smart flyers. I think they don't need to be the hard to read flyers. And I know for sure I have an entire post on how to create a flyer and for tips for that. So I can link to that. Let me just jot that one down. And then I like to start looking for volunteers at least 3 weeks in advance of the volunteer need. So if you're doing it later than that, you might be hard pressed to find capable volunteers. So because they just might not be able to clear their schedule enough to make it happen. But if with more notice, they can totally make it happen. I know this was something I ran into personally this past election season. I enjoy going out and canvassing for different for people that I'm supporting politically, and they would often let me know like a day or two before the events where they were going to be canvassing, and I was like, I need more time. Like, I totally want to come out, but I need to like juggle things around and make sure that kids are where they need to be for their weekend activities and whatever. So I need more time. And people are like, yeah, I totally get that. I'm sorry. It does tend to be last minute, just because the communication systems aren't in place. So I think at a minimum, your PTO should be emailing your families at least once a month. And you can do this either through your own email system, or you can do it through the school. Like for the one PTA where I'm president, we can just send something to the assistant principal that does the newsletter, and she'll add it right on in. And then we also use Class Dojo. So not we, the PTA, but we, the school. So we can send something to the other assistant principal who's in charge of that, and he'll get something out for us. So it's really handy to have those systems set up. And the other way that you should be asking for volunteers is, and this is kind of overlooked, I don't hear it a whole heck of a lot, is during the morning announcements. Like, if you can get the kids to ask their parents, that goes a long way. Like, I've done this a lot for getting parents to show up at meetings. I'll get the kids to be like, bring your kid, or bring your parent rather, to the PTO meeting, or bring them to the skating night, or bring them to carnival, or just if you get the kids interested in going or the activity, then chances are they'll ask their parents to go. And if their parents are going to be there anyway, they might volunteer. So it's all a good thing. All right, so let me think. I've talked about flyers, good ones, non-distracting. You know what I mean? I've talked about that before. Emailing, Class Dojo, definitely ask on Facebook. And then the one thing that is so often overlooked because we're busy, PTO leaders make these general asks for like hey, volunteers needed for XYZ event, right? But what a lot of people aren't doing is that next step of making that personal ask. And I totally covered that in a blog post. So I'll write that one down. I think that came out like this week or last week. I can't remember. But that part is so crucial, and I'll tell you why. The one thing I've noticed through all of my years of PTA work is that all the stuff I'm doing and all the stuff other people are doing, it's really for PTA stuff, is really based on relationships. And without those relationships, people are a whole heck of a lot less likely to continue to do it. Because I know that like a lot of this stuff is time consuming. And if I'm going to be spending so much time running a fundraiser or leading a PTA, it needs to be fun, and I need to like the people I'm hanging out with. And so that's why I say it's based on relationships, because it kind of is. So make sure that you're asking people to volunteer, like specifically. They'll feel special. Like I can't tell you, when somebody reaches out to me and says, I heard that you were the woman to ask about spirit wear. I'm like, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you for thinking of me. Like, even if they're asking me to help them with something, they kind of just like paid me a compliment, so I'm way more likely to help them. So if you have a specific volunteer need, don't hesitate to ask out individually and make that personal ask, so that you're not just asking the school community at large, but you're asking Tammy and Sarah and Diana and Gary. Like, you're making those specific asks, and you can do that via email. You can catch them at the flagpole at pickup. You can, if you're right next to them in car line, you can roll down your window and holler at them and be like, hey, I need to talk to you. You can text them, you can Facebook message them, however you normally would communicate with them. Do it. They will so love it. And if you ask it the right way, and if you have that relationship with them, I guarantee they're not going to be running the other way. They might, like screaming, you know how you always get that visual of people going, I do not want to do whatever you're going to ask me to do. I've noticed that since this year, becoming president again, I've had to ask people to do things. And there's been a couple roles in the PTO that I'm having trouble getting people to agree to, but they're telling me no in the nicest way. And they're saying, now's not a good time, but let's talk about it next year, because I might be ready next year. Like, things are just too unsettled for me right now, so let's talk about it next year. So that is the tactic to take. All of this stuff is a long game scenario. You're not doing anything for the short term. If you're looking for all those short-term wins, it's not going to pay off for you long term. So, or in the long run. So, okay, I think I've talked to death about this. I don't see any more comments or questions, I should say. Okay, so let me just give you a heads up about some schedule changes that are coming our way due to the holidays, and everyone's busy. So next week, there's not going to be a live, because I am going to be busy cooking for Thanksgiving. And I figure y'all are doing that too. And then the week after that, I'll be back with another live. And then I think that's kind of going to be it for the scheduled lives for the year, sad to say. Because December, all of our schedules are crazy, and I'm just thinking it might be a good time to take off. I know that I might be back with like maybe 1 or 2 impromptu lives, but they're not going to be scheduled because I don't want to commit to anything, because it's a shorter time frame to get ready for the holidays, and my kids get out, I don't know, on the 21st or something like that. Anyway, we'll begin again in the new year, but everybody's busy during this time, so I thought this is like, you guys wouldn't be too upset with me. If you're really missing me and needing a Christina fix, you can always hop on over to the PTO Answers YouTube channel. I have a whole bunch of videos there, and I will make sure to go back and add in all the ones I haven't added so far. Like today's is going to go up, and I still owe last week's to go up. Been busy. So yeah, so that is all for today. So I hope this is super helpful for you and giving you some good ideas on how to get members and how to get volunteers. So I will see you in 2 weeks. Have a great Thanksgiving, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.